Everyone cried at funerals, except Enami. He laughed, loudly, joyfully, while others mourned. They called him mad. But no one knew, his laughter was the key to a buried truth that would shake the entire village. In Umaro, when someone died, the air turned heavy with mourning. Wailing would rise like a river bursting its banks. Women threw dust on their heads. Men stood with bent shoulders. The children, too, learned early that death was something sacred, something to cry for. But not Enami. Oh no, not Enami. While others wept, Enami laughed. Not the shy giggle of a madman, but a deep, thunderous laugh that rose from his belly like the beat of a talking drum. Ha! 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 It would echo through the mourners like lightning cracking the silence of a storm. People didn't understand. Children ran from him. Mothers clutched their babies tighter. The elders shook their heads and muttered, "That man is touched. Maybe cursed." But Enami never explained himself. He would laugh, then walk away quietly, his feet dragging in his dusty sandals, his wrinkled shirt fluttering slightly in the breeze. One day, a sorrowful shadow fell upon Umaro. The heart of the village, Elder Obina, had died. Ah, Elder Obina. That man had a heart as wide as the savannah. When children went hungry, he fed them. When two men quarreled over land, he settled it with wisdom and fairness. When a girl wept for lack of school fees, he sold his last goat to help her. The village loved him like the rain loves dry earth. So when he passed, Umaro wept as one body. The funeral was to be grand. A white canopy was spread near the village square. Drummers beat slow rhythms of mourning, and women cooked pots of yam and bitter leaf soup for the mourners. But behind the cooking fires and black cloths, one question danced on everyone's lips like a hidden ember. Will Enami come? And more importantly, will he laugh again? The day of the funeral arrived. The sky was a dull grey, as though the heavens themselves mourned Elder Obina. Men sat with bowed heads, women sniffled behind handkerchiefs. Obina's family sat at the front, their faces pale from grief and sleepless nights. A hush fell as the priest lifted his hands to begin the rites. Then, just as the first prayer floated into the air, Enami appeared. He walked quietly to the back of the crowd, wearing the same dusty shirt, his eyes unreadable. The villagers stiffened. You could feel the tension in the air, like a drum about to be struck. The priest spoke of Obina's kindness, his service, his life well lived. Then, without warning, Enami laughed. It burst out of him like water from a broken pot. Loud. Raw. Alive. The mourners froze. All eyes turned to him. Obina's son, Chaik, leapt to his feet. His hands were trembling, his chest heaving. How dare you laugh at my father's funeral, he roared. People muttered. Some rose to throw Enami out. But he didn't flinch. He laughed harder, clutching his belly like a man who had heard the funniest joke of his life. Tears of laughter slid down his cheeks. Then he stopped, wiped his eyes, and looked at Chaik. I'm not mocking your father, he said softly. I laugh because I see what you cannot. The village gasped. What do you mean? Someone asked, voice trembling. But Enami shook his head, smiled faintly, and walked away into the wind like a man who had already said too much. That night, the whispers grew thick. The women gossiped by the fire. The elders leaned close under the moon. Some said, maybe Enami sees spirits. Others whispered, or maybe guilt has twisted his mind. But young Chaik, he could not let it go. His father was not a man to be laughed at, not like that, not by Enami. I will find out the truth, Chaik swore, fist clenched and heart heavy. But before he could begin his search, another death came. A young woman named Amaka, bright like the morning sun, sweet as mango in harmattan, was found dead. The village cried again. Mothers held their daughters close. The air smelled of grief and fear. And once again, they asked, "Will Enami come?" He did. And what happened next, my children, shook the bones of Yumaro to their very core. The air was heavy the morning of Amoka's funeral, like the sky itself refused to breathe. Clouds hung low over Yumaro, and even the birds were silent. Amoka, she was a flower in full bloom, a girl whose laughter could make the palm trees sway and whose kindness healed like herbs soaked in morning dew. Her death came sudden, too sudden. Some said she slipped and fell. Others murmured, something wasn't right. Her mother, bent from sorrow, wailed so loud her voice broke. "My daughter. My beautiful daughter," she cried, her wrapper soaked with tears. Neighbors tried to console her, but how do you soothe a mother whose heart has been torn? The villagers gathered again, this time beneath a grey sky that matched the sorrow in their eyes. The drums played slowly. The mourners came with heavy feet, many still grieving Obina. The pain was fresh. Too fresh. And as the priest began his prayer, people looked over their shoulders. "Is he coming?" someone whispered. He did. Just like before, Enami walked quietly to the back of the crowd, his eyes calm, his face unreadable. He stood with his arms behind his back like a man waiting for something only he could see. The priest began to speak. Amoka's mother sobbed louder. Then it happened. Laughter. Raw. Loud. That same unsettling, echoing laugh. As if someone had told a joke at the edge of the grave. People gasped. Amoka's mother screamed, her voice cracking with rage. "Why are you laughing at my daughter's death?" The villagers turned on Enami. Their eyes burned. Hands clenched. Some stepped forward as if to strike him. But Enami's laughter stopped. And his face grew serious. "I do not laugh at your daughter," he said, voice low. "I laugh because the truth is near." The crowd fell silent. "What truth?" someone shouted. "Speak plain words, Enami," another cried. But Enami only shook his head and turned away once more, disappearing down the dusty path like a ghost carried by the wind. That evening, Chaik sat alone under the mango tree behind his father's compound. His head ached. His hands trembled. Inami's words haunted him, "I see what you cannot. The truth is near." He could take it no longer. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the village, Chaik stood up and followed the path to the edge of Yumaro, where the forest grew thick and quiet and only one small hut stood. Inami's hut. The man was seated outside, staring at the darkening sky. He looked peaceful, as if the weight of the world had never touched his shoulders. Chaik approached, fist tight. "Tell me what you meant," he said, voice trembling. Enami turned slowly, his eyes soft but heavy. "The dead do not rest, Chaik, until their stories are told." Chaik frowned. "What stories?" Enami leaned forward. His voice dropped, no louder than the whisper of a breeze. "Your father and Amoka were killed." The world stopped moving. Chaik staggered back a step. "What? That's not true. My father was old, yes, but he wasn't," his voice broke. "And Amoka? That was an accident." Enami looked him dead in the eye. "The dead speak, Chaik. I hear their voices. They are restless. They demand justice." Chaik shook his head. "You expect me to believe this? That spirits talk to you?" Enami stood. His face was sad. "You don't have to believe me. But the truth will not stay buried. Listen carefully, and you will hear it, too." That night, Chaik could not sleep. He tossed and turned. Dreams of poison, of whispers, of Amoka's wide, frightened eyes haunted him. When the cock crowed, he rose, his mind made up. He would find the truth. No matter how dark, no matter how painful. He began with the people closest to his father. Old men who shared palm wine with Elder Obina. Men who had laughed with him in the evenings under the stars. At first, they said nothing. But one, a frail man named Okoro, hesitated. "Your father wasn't himself in his final days," Okoro said. He complained of a bitter taste in his meals. Chaik's heart pounded. He went to the village herbalist, Ediku, the one who used to treat his father with roots and leaves. "Did my father ever come to you before he died?" he asked. Ediku nodded slowly. "Yes." He said his belly hurt often. "I gave him herbs, but something felt wrong." Chaik stepped closer. "What do you mean?" Ediku lowered her voice. "It felt like poison. I warned him to be careful, but it was too late." That night, as the moonlight crept through the trees, Chaik sat outside his hut, staring into the fire. His father had been poisoned. And Amoka, a close friend of Amoka's, a quiet girl named F, came to him in secret. "Amoka was scared before she died," she said. "She told me she had found out something dangerous. She said she had to speak to the elders." Chaik's blood turned cold. The pieces were coming together. His father, poisoned. Amoka, silenced. But by who? And why? There was only one man who might know. Enami. And Chaik knew it was time to face the truth, no matter where it led. That evening, as the stars blinked open above Yumero like the eyes of ancient ancestors, Chaik returned once more to Inami's hut. The night air was thick, but quiet, the kind of quiet that wraps itself around a village when something is about to change. Enami sat outside as usual, his back straight, his eyes lost in the moon. Chaik walked up to him without a word, the fire in his chest needing no introduction. "I've heard enough whispers," Chaik said, his voice hoarse. "You were right. There's more to my father's death, and to Amoka's." Enami nodded slowly, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. "I told you, Chaik," he said, his voice like wind through dry grass. "The dead do not lie. Your father was poisoned. Amoka heard the truth and paid for it." Chaik paced, rubbing the back of his neck, trying to hold his fury still. "I need to know who did it," he said. "I need names." Inami's face darkened. "The truth is a sharp blade," he said. "And it cuts deep. Your uncle, Izenwa, had a hand in it." Chaik froze. "Uncle Izenwa," he whispered. "But he and my father were close. They shared land, raised cattle together, he helped raise me." Enami nodded grimly. "And jealousy grows best where love once lived. Your uncle did not work alone. He had help, someone from within your home." Chaik's stomach turned. His mind spun through the faces of those he trusted, his cousins, the housemaid Ada, even his own mother. Who among them could carry poison in one hand and smiles in the other? "I will find out," Chaik said, jaw tight. "Be careful," Enami warned. "The ones who kill for power do not stop easily. They will not spare you if you come too close." But Chaik had made up his mind. The ghosts of his father and Amoka were not going to rest. Not yet. The next morning, Chaik went to Izenwa's compound, where his uncle sat sharpening a machete under a mango tree. The smell of oil and steel filled the air. "Uncle," Chaik greeted, trying to keep his voice steady. Izenwa looked up, smiling warmly. "Ah, my son. What brings you here this early?" Chaik sat opposite him. "I need to ask you something important, about my father." The machete paused in Izenwa's hands. "What about him?" "I know you two argued before he died," Chike said. Izenwa's smile faded like sun behind a storm cloud. That's not your business, he muttered. It is now, Chike said firmly. People are saying there was poison involved. Izenwa's hand gripped the machete tighter. His eyes narrowed. You're accusing me of something wicked, boy. I'm looking for the truth. Izenwa slammed the machete onto the bench beside him. Your father and I disagreed, yes. About land. He wanted me to sell. I refused. That's all. Chike stood, fists clenched. If that's the truth, then tell it without fear. Izenwa didn't answer. That night, Chike returned to Enami. I confronted him. He denied it. Enami didn't look surprised. The guilty always deny until the spirits force their mouths open. But the poison wasn't meant to kill right away. It was slow. Calculated. Chike sat down heavily, his head in his hands. Then who helped him? Look inside your home, Enami said, voice solemn. Someone let him in. Someone gave him access. Chike's heart dropped. There was only one person who had constant access to the kitchen. Ada. The next morning, he found Ada behind the compound, pounding ogbono seeds. Her eyes darted when she saw him. Ada, he said quietly, I need to ask you something. She swallowed hard and tried to look away. You worked in our house for years, he said. You saw everything. You cooked most of my father's food. Ada's hands trembled slightly. My uncle, he visited often. Did you ever see him add anything to the meals? Ada's lips quivered. I don't know. I didn't see. Don't lie to me, Ada. And then, like a pot lid breaking under pressure, Ada burst into tears. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she cried. He threatened me. Your uncle. He said if I didn't let him cook for your father, he'd harm my family. So you let him poison my father? Chike said, voice rising. I tried to stop him. Ada wailed. I begged him. But he always found a way. I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. Chike stood there, his heart pounding like a festival drum. Rage filled his chest, but so did something else, pity. Ada had been caught in something far larger than herself. Still, her silence had killed two people. You should have spoken, Chike said coldly. I'm sorry, she whispered, I truly am. That night, Chike sat with Enami again, this time with tears in his eyes. She admitted it, he said. He threatened her. She was too scared to speak. Enami nodded. Then the time has come. We must bring the truth to light. How? We will call the elders. Present the evidence. Your uncle will not expect it. Chike looked toward the stars. And what of Ada? She must answer for her silence. But she will not carry the weight alone. Chike stood slowly. I will invite him to dinner, he said. He'll come. He trusts me. Enami smiled faintly. Then the spirits will be watching. The plan was set. The table was ready. The time for justice had come. The moon hung low like a watchful elder that night, silvering the rooftops of Umaro as if the ancestors themselves had come closer to listen. In the heart of the compound, Chike lit a lantern, its glow dancing on the clay walls. The table was set, neatly, humbly, with bowls of pounded yam, egusi soup, and palm wine. But tonight, the food was not for joy. Tonight, the food was bait. As the frogs began the evening chorus and the crickets whispered secrets into the darkness, Izenwa arrived. "Ah, my boy," he said with a chuckle, walking in with open arms. "It warms my heart that you still think of your old uncle." Chike forced a smile. "Sit, uncle. Tonight, I wanted us to share a meal. Like the old days. Izenwa's eyes twinkled, but behind them was caution. He glanced at the second lantern flickering near the hut. Something about the quiet, about Jack's posture, made his skin itch. Still, he sat. They ate. Slowly. Carefully. Jack barely touched his food, but he kept the conversation warm, as if nothing boiled beneath his skin. I still miss Papa, Jack said at last, setting down his spoon. I think about how he died, how fast it happened. Izenwa nodded. It was a great loss. A tragedy. Jack leaned forward. But I sometimes wonder if it was really natural. Izenwa's hand paused mid-motion. The room stiffened. What are you saying? He asked quietly. Jack's voice was calm but sharp. I think someone helped him die, uncle. The silence crackled. I don't like where this is going, Izenwa muttered. But Jack stood now, his face clear, his eyes glowing like hot coals. I know it was you. The air sucked out of the room. Izenwa's mouth opened, but no words came. And then Enami stepped from the shadows, holding a folded paper in his hand. Ada's written confession. We have your accomplice's words, Enami said. We know everything. Izenwa shot up from his chair, his face pale. You brought this madman here. You believe him over your own blood? Tell the truth, Jack said, voice firm. Izenwa's knees gave slightly. He sat down again, his body slumped like a sack of guilt. I didn't mean to kill him, he whispered at last. I only meant to weaken him. Why? Jack asked. Izenwa's eyes glistened now, but they held no shame. Only fear. He wanted to divide the land. Give half of it to strangers, to that girl, Amoka. He was going to change the world. I couldn't let him. Jack's jaw clenched. So you poisoned your brother. Izenwa looked away. Slowly. Over time. He trusted me. And Ada helped, even if she didn't want to. And Amaka? Enami asked quietly. Izenwa's head dropped. She overheard us. She threatened to speak. I panicked. You killed her too, Jack said, barely able to speak. I didn't want it to be like this, Izenwa muttered. But this is what you chose, Enami said, his voice rising like thunder. The spirits of Obina and Amoka cry no more, they've told their truth through us. Jack looked at his uncle. The man who taught him how to hold a machete, who danced with him during the New Yam festival. Now he sat broken, swallowed by his own evil. I will take this to the elders, Jack said. Izenwa didn't speak again. He didn't need to. The next morning, the village square was full. All the elders sat beneath the great Iroko tree. The villagers gathered, murmuring, their eyes darting between Jack, Enami, Ada, and Izenwa, who stood with bowed head like a man awaiting judgment. Jack stepped forward first. In his hands were Ada's confession and Inami's testimony. Then came the silence. And then, truth. One by one, the pieces were laid bare. Ada wept as she recounted the threats. Enami spoke with calm authority, describing the visions that guided him. Jack read aloud the words Izenwa had spoken the night before. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wind over dry grass. The elders shook their heads. How could you poison your own blood? One asked Izenwa. Izenwa said nothing. The chief elder rose. His voice was deep and sorrowful. By the customs of Umaro, you have broken the sacred bonds of family. You betrayed your brother and shed innocent blood. For this, you are banished. You will leave this village before the sun sets. And Ada, he added, turning to the housemaid. You allowed evil to take root. Though you were threatened, you were not chained. You will leave as well. The villagers nodded. Some cried. Others sighed with relief. Justice had come, not by sword, but by truth. That evening, as the sun spilled golden light across the land, Chaik found Enami sitting under a neem tree, chuckling softly to himself. "You're laughing again," Chaik said, smiling for the first time in many moons. Enami nodded. "Because justice has been served. Your father and Amoka can rest now." Chaik sat beside him, the weight of sorrow and anger beginning to lift. "I couldn't have done this without you." Enami shook his head gently. "No, my son. You had the courage. I only carried the message." Chaik looked to the horizon. Peace had returned to Umaro. But the story was not over just yet. After the judgment had been given, and the dust of grief began to settle over Umaro, the village breathed differently. People walked slower, spoke softer, and when they passed by Chaik, they bowed their heads, not in pity, but in quiet respect. He had done what few could. He had unearthed truth where lies were buried like rotten yams in the soil. He had faced betrayal from blood and stood firm beside the dead, who had no voices except through the living. But with victory came silence. One morning, just a few days after Izenwa and Ada were banished, Chaik rose early with the rooster's crow and made his way to the small hut by the edge of the forest. He carried a small calabash of palm wine, intending to thank Enami, the strange man who had once been a mystery, a mockery, and now a guide. But when he arrived, the hut was empty. No mat on the floor. No firewood stacked by the wall. No footprints in the dust. Gone. Enami had left without a single word. Chaik stood there for a long time. The wind blew gently through the trees, rustling the leaves as if they too were whispering goodbye. He should have expected it. Enami had never truly belonged to one place. He had walked like a man listening to whispers only he could hear, answering to something greater than any elder or chief. Still, the pain of his absence clung to Chaik's chest like smoke. That evening, the village gathered in the square, not for mourning, but for healing. It was Chaik's idea. He had cleared the land behind his father's compound and dug a hole with his own hands. Into it, he planted 2 trees, one for Elder Obina, and one for Amoka. Around the trees, the villagers stood in a wide circle, candles flickering in their palms. The night was calm, and the stars blinked like wet eyes. Chaik stepped forward and placed 2 calabashes at the roots, one filled with kola nuts, the other with water. "These are for those who spoke when they could not be heard," he said. The people bowed their heads. A soft sob came from Amoka's mother, who now stood beside Chaik like family. They had cried too many of the same tears not to be joined. Then Chaik raised his voice and told the story. Not just of what happened, but of why it mattered. Of how silence kills, and how truth, no matter how painful, is a kind of medicine. Bitter, yes, but healing. And when he finished speaking, something curious happened. A faint echo of laughter drifted on the wind. Soft. Gentle. Almost playful. The villagers looked around, startled. But Chaik simply smiled. "He's watching," he whispered. And somehow, they all understood. Enami, the man who laughed at funerals, was never laughing at death. He was laughing at lies. He was laughing at those who thought they could bury truth beneath tears and dirt. And now that truth had come to light, his work was done. In the days that followed, Chaik rebuilt not just his father's house, but his family's name. He welcomed travelers who had once feared to set foot in Umaro. He became the one villagers came to when there were disputes, just like his father had done. And every year, on the day Obina died, Chaik would sit beneath the 2 trees and pour a little palm wine into the earth. Sometimes, when the wind blew just right, he would hear that familiar laugh again. Not loud. Not mocking. Just soft, like a thank you. And so the story passed from mouth to mouth, fire to fire. Children grew up hearing about the man who laughed at funerals. Some were afraid of him. Others admired him. But those who listened closely knew this. Enami was not mad. He was chosen. Chosen to carry a burden most of us are too afraid to touch. Because truth is not light, my child. It is heavy. But if you carry it with courage, even the dead will smile.